Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the channel. I get lots of questions all the time about hijab in general, or people curious about, they're thinking about putting it on, or how did they find the strength to put it on? How did I find the strength to put it on? Or women asking about their daughters, is there a way to encourage and support them? So today actually I'm joined here together with my oldest daughter. Her name is Asiya. She's agreed to come on and talk a little bit about her experience with hijab, how she decided to put it on. So welcome, Asiya.
Hi.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, everybody asks me all the time, you have a daughter that put on hijab, and how did you get her to? And I always like to say, I didn't get her. I had nothing to do with me or her dad. So Asiya, how did you decide to put hijab on, and when did you decide to put it on?
I was about third or fourth grade. I have no idea how I decided. It was just like, I think then it was because it made me look older, I guess. That was just influence, or I liked how it looked. And at the time, my aunt also started trying different styles of hijab, I think, and that's what influenced me.
And it's interesting when we talk about this story, because I feel like you and I have very different memories, I guess in terms of how I interpreted you finding strength to put on hijab, and then when you turn back and reflect on it, because we've discussed this before. Do you remember you were doing this report?
It was about Malala.
Yeah, so we were doing a book report on Malala. And then it was so interesting to me because we almost to the day that we finished that book report, then that was also, you were just like, okay, I'm going to put on hijab. And you had talked multiple times before, when you were smaller about, I'm going to put on hijab. And we were like, okay, and then you would, you were testing it out or trying it out. And both your dad and I thought that was just going to be another stage. And then you just didn't take it off. And so we're like, okay, mashallah, this is it. But it's interesting that when I think about that time, I definitely think that somehow reading the story of another Muslim woman, I always felt like that somehow that made a connection for you or something.
Well, I feel like a lot of the time, people get influenced by things or people they see or know.
So you were in grade 3 and you put on hijab, and so you go to school, and what happens when you go to school?
I was the first and the only covered at the whole school, which was, it was kind of cool. Everyone knew who I was. And then after a time, a lot of my friends also started putting on hijab, which was awesome because we would have these days where we would all, it was like, okay, we're going to have this color of hijab or this style today. And it would be it was fun. And I had tried going to school with a scarf a couple days before, months before. So I was kind of used to it. And it, I got used to it. No one said anything, so it was fun.
So yeah, so that was something that we were really fortunate for, that your school was supportive, you had a supportive environment. Did you have any difficulties at school?
At school, no. I've had a couple incidents outside of school, but I think it's after a time you get used to it and you actually know how to cope with them.
I think a lot of times people are anticipating difficulty, or they're fearful of what could happen. And so can you, do you feel comfortable telling us a little bit more, and then how did you deal with that situation? So
it was a situation with our neighbors, I think, but to cope with it, it's after a time I think you get used to it, because to be honest, anything could happen, and we hear it all the time. It's been interesting to kind of see your personality and your strength kind of develop over time. But I think that, that confidence is something that you have been able to grow into. I think at the early time, it wasn't as easy to kind of find your voice. I felt the same way. I remember after I became Muslim, when I first put on hijab, I remember I would go places and I would think that everybody was staring at me, even though they weren't, right? Mm-hmm.
It's because that beginning time that until you kind of find your rhythm, you do find a rhythm typically, and then you do become more comfortable, would you not say?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, definitely you get comfortable, and it's been about 6 years, so I think I've gotten used to it. I definitely still, when I'm going out or try something new with my scarf or a different style or something new with it, I still do think, what will people think about it? Maybe it's okay for me, but in society, it's sometimes new things do take time to get used to. And I think as soon as you get out of the boundaries of you know what, not everyone cares about what you are wearing, so just go with it. I think it gets easier, it gets easier.
Are you saying that you think about wearing hijab in general, you're wondering what people think, or when you try a new style?
I think it's not the idea of the hijab. Like, I mean, I know people will stare at me, and they do stare because I do have the hijab on. I think everyone's idea of the hijab is different, or why they put it on is different. And sometimes trying on new, like, styles or trying something different can also, I mean, normally it can be scary, but I think that people don't look the same way.
And what about people who say that, for example, if you cover your hair, if you wear hijab, that you kind of lose part of your identity? Do you feel like, in terms of how does hijab represent your identity and who you feel like you are?
It doesn't ruin or change your identity. I think it does add up to it. The hijab also does, it represents Islam. So that is something you have to be careful. It's like, if I do this, if I go there, will it represent Islam properly? So you definitely have to think about that. And it doesn't change anything in my life, and it doesn't affect who I am. And I still am the person I want. If I want to go out and, I don't know, see the world or become something else or try something new.
So if somebody asked you, why do you wear hijab, what would you say?
It's because it's a part of me. I've never had to actually think about why am I wearing the hijab, because one, yes, it is something it's known to be a fard, and I should do it for Islam. You should be able to find a reason in yourself, or it should mean something to you specifically. So when people ask me that question, or if that comes to me, I never actually think about I've never had a reason, because it is a part of me and I shouldn't have to have a specific reason. It's who I want it to be. It's what I chose, and it's who I am.
Specifically, so we've talked about it being part of your identity and part of your style and trying different styles. And so you had something in the last year that was really exciting in terms of hijab. You want to talk about it?
So basically, you had to design a style a design for the hijab. It was for Mother's Day, and I won. So this is extremely exciting for me, and it was actually really fun because I love designing clothes and just scarves and stuff like that, and I love painting. So putting together something that is my identity and something I love doing together was awesome. I enjoyed doing that a lot. So. And
this is a scarf that you designed.
Yes, it is.
Show everybody.
So yeah, it's a design.
What would you say to somebody who is considering putting on hijab, but maybe is feeling scared, or is feeling like people are going to say things, or they're going to be rejected or criticized, something like that?
It will happen, and especially I think this happens a lot is when you don't have a scarf on. I feel like people will think that they feel a little bit more free, and then they'll get restricted, just like we talked about. And people will actually think about well, you used to do that, or you used to do this, or people will say that, and as soon as you put the scarf on, they will they will say things. It's it will come with it, but I think you just have to cope with it, because it is terrifying and it's hard. It's you have to get used to it, but after time they won't care, or you shouldn't have to care that much, because if it means something really important to you, then it means it's important to you. You shouldn't have to change that for other people.
Yeah, and I think as we saw with your life is that the people that were really important were the people that were going to support you regardless, and the people that were critical or made comments were the people that you didn't need in your life. And I think that's the way often it goes with anybody, right? Is that the people who truly are sincerely your friends are the people that are always going to be there to support you. People
will say stuff, and a lot of the time it will come from people who are close to you also, but then it's your choice.
So there you go. So there is Asia's story about how she decided to come to hijab. Definitely her choice. You've always been
It was my
strong-willed.
choice.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been stubborn.
And so much of part of her identity. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I really do hope that you found the story beneficial. And if you have any specific questions or something that you'd like to ask more, then please feel free to leave the comments below. And I do hope that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow along for everything else that's coming up in the near future, inshallah. All right, Assalamu alaikum.